Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission here is simple: to take the most potent insights from the world's most successful figures and condense them into a practical, usable playbook just for you.
And today, we are immersing ourselves completely in the world of Jack Ma.
We are talking about the founder of Alibaba, a name that has become, globally synonymous with not just massive wealth, but truly audacious scale.
It's such a compelling story. And the sheer magnitude of his current influence, this global ecosystem serving millions every day, it can often overshadow the fundamental, repeatable lessons that allowed him to get there in the first place.
That's precisely why this deep dive is so essential. We aren't here for, a simple biography.
No, not at all.
We're here to really dissect Jack Ma's own words, his philosophy on failure, his strategy for growth, and his surprisingly tactical advice for anyone pursuing financial success.
And that ultimate goal, financial freedom.
Exactly. When you look at the raw numbers, the impact is,
Well,
it's just stunning.
it really is. Alibaba today supports over 100 million active buyers every single day.
100 million a day. Just let that sink in.
And it's estimated that directly and indirectly, it has created something like 14 million jobs in China. And Ma's ambition, it doesn't stop there. He set a goal to serve 2 billion consumers globally.
That scale is just mind-boggling. But the context of the beginning, that's what's even more crucial for you, our listener.
Right. His foundation is built entirely on this principle of starting from absolute zero.
He frequently and proudly says that he didn't have a rich father, powerful uncle, or $1 from bank.
Exactly. His story is, the ultimate proof that the tools for financial freedom are accessible to anyone. But the barrier isn't capital.
No.
It's mental fortitude. It's preparation. His philosophy really centers on this radical optimism, a decade-long hard work horizon, and viewing failure not as an obstacle, but as tuition. You're paying to learn.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because before we can even talk about the IPO and the billions, we have to start at the bottom.
We have to.
We are beginning with the unmatched record of failure and rejection that precedes the legend. Because this, right here, is the bedrock of his entire philosophy of success.
And it's so crucial for anyone striving for financial success, because it fundamentally redefines what normal effort and resilience even look like.
His failure resume, as some have called it, is truly something to behold.
It really is. If you compile the list of academic and early professional rejections, Jack Ma's list would sit right at the very top. It just sets the stage for a unique kind of mental toughness.
And the level of detail in these failures is what makes them so instructional. It wasn't just struggling a bit, it was failing spectacularly at every traditional gatekeeper.
Every single one.
He failed key primary school tests not once, but twice. Then he failed his middle school exams 3 times.
And for the final push into higher education, the university entrance examination, which is, the most important test in this country, he failed it 3 times as well.
3 times. Can you imagine the pressure, the family disappointment?
Think about that sustained pressure and disappointment over, nearly a decade of your most formative years. He eventually managed to enroll in a teacher's college, one that was often considered 3rd or 4th class in his region.
And yet he now lovingly refers to it as the best university he ever attended.
Right, because it forced him to think differently. It wasn't about being the best student. It was about learning how to survive and adapt.
But the academic failures were, and you're not going to believe this, they were only the warm-up.
Yeah, that was just the beginning.
Once he graduated and started looking for work, he applied for 30 different jobs. 30. And was rejected from all 30 of them.
30 interviews, 30 rejections. It's a perfect record of failure.
The specifics are almost comedic, but they illustrate the sheer improbability of his success. When the police force was hiring, 5 people applied.
5 people. 4 were accepted.
And he was the only one rejected.
He was literally the statistical outlier in the negative direction. It's incredible.
And the KFC story is perhaps the most famous example of this rejection syndrome.
Oh, this one's a classic.
When KFC first arrived in his city, 24 people applied for the jobs they were offering.
23 people were accepted.
He was the only person turned away. The only one. You have to wonder what that interview looked like.
It's a profound moment to just pause and consider. Imagine being rejected by KFC when 95% of the other applicants were successful. That level of consistent, almost targeted rejection would just break most people's confidence.
Especially if you're trying to build some kind of financial stability.
Absolutely. And yet, he just kept going.
To top it all off, in a display of what I can only describe as astonishing stubbornness, he applied to Harvard University.
10 separate times.
10 times.
Yeah.
10 application packages, 10 rejection letters.
This relentless, almost pathological persistence is the key takeaway here. Most people, they equate failure with a lack of ability or a definitive stop sign.
Right, this isn't for me.
Exactly. But Ma learned to view it as simply a normal part of the process. His lesson to young people is direct. We have to get used to it.
That reframes the entire pursuit of success, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If rejection is just the norm, you stop internalizing it as a personal flaw.
And you start treating it as data, as feedback, nothing more.
He notes that if you eventually succeed, every mistake or rejection you encountered earlier becomes this legendary story that inspires millions.
But if you fail and you quit, then all those mistakes are just forgotten garbage.
So the essential difference between the legend and the garbage is just whether you persevered to the outcome?
It's that simple. And the mental fuel for that perseverance is the optimistic attitude he somehow maintained through this entire period.
That's the part that's so hard to grasp.
Well, get this. When he was rejected by Harvard for the 10th time, he told himself, and this is the vital part of the story, someday I should go teach there.
He didn't just move on. He changed the goal from being a student to being a teacher.
That is the core of his resilience. The goal didn't disappear. The path just became irrelevant. He didn't despair over the current rejection. He projected himself into a future where he commanded the very stage that had repeatedly denied him entry.
So let's tie this directly to financial success for our listener. This narrative means that the foundation for massive financial freedom, it's not built on innate brilliance or a perfect resume.
Okay.
It's built on cultivating a radical mental toughness that treats failure as tuition, not a final verdict. If you want financial freedom, you have to be ready to be the only person rejected out of 24 applicants, metaphorically speaking.
And still show up on day 25.
Exactly. That mental resilience is the greatest unquantifiable asset he carried into entrepreneurship.
And this leads us to his unconventional education, the practical, on-the-ground skills that truly prepared him for global business, far more than any university degree ever could have.
Which brings us to Section 2, building Alibaba. And the journey started not in a high-tech lab or a venture capital office, but as a friendly local tour guide.
His dedication to mastering English, and I think more importantly, understanding foreign culture, was truly extraordinary.
For 9 years.
For 9 years. Every single morning, he would go to the Hangzhou Shangri-La Hotel, which was the main hub for foreign tourists in his city, and he would just offer to be a free guide.
So he was essentially bartering his time for knowledge for almost a decade.
That's right. And what he gained, as he stresses repeatedly, wasn't just vocabulary. This extensive cultural exchange, in his words, opened his mind.
And that is the crucial insight, isn't it?
It is. He realized that the perspectives of these Western tourists were completely different from the singular worldview he had been taught by his family and the Chinese educational system at the time.
He was getting a real-world global education for free.
Exactly. This deep immersion built a cultural intelligence that was infinitely more valuable than just language proficiency, especially when he launched a global business like Alibaba. It allowed him to bridge gaps.
He notes proudly that he is 100% made in China, having never formally studied or trained abroad, yet he operates and thinks with a fundamentally global mindset.
That skill set understanding disparate cultural drivers is so essential for any entrepreneur aiming for massive scale. And that global perspective led to the pivotal moment in 1995.
He's in Seattle, in the U.S. Bank building, and is introduced to the internet for the very first time.
And he was initially terrified of breaking the expensive machine. He didn't want to touch it.
But he finally worked up the courage to type in his first search word.
Which was beer.
Beer, of all things.
And what he saw was both the global potential and the glaring, almost embarrassing gap for his home country. He saw beer data for Germany, the USA, Japan.
But nothing for China. And when he searched China itself.
Nothing. No relevant data at all.
That absence of data was the ignition point. It was the complaint, the vacuum, that immediately suggested a massive opportunity.
So he worked with his friend to create a small rudimentary page called simply China, listing his small translation agency. He said it was very ugly.
And the market validation was instantaneous.
Unbelievably fast. They launched the page at 9:40 in the morning. By 12:30 p.m., just 3 hours later, they had received 5 emails.
5 emails from people who were just excited to see a Chinese website and were desperately asking how they could connect.
That overwhelming immediate demand proved the existence of a huge untapped need for online connection in China. It was right there.
And this early realization that his business had to be global from day one defined his most crucial branding decision, the name Alibaba.
He knew he needed a name that translated instantly, universally. He was in San Francisco and tested it on a waitress. He asked her, "Do you know Alibaba?"
And she immediately replied,
Open sesame.
perfect. It's recognizable globally, it's instantly related to hidden wealth and opportunity, and crucially,
It started with the letter A.
guaranteeing top-of-list visibility in any directory. This wasn't accidental. This was strategic genius focused on ubiquitous visibility from day one.
Today, Alibaba has grown from those original 18 people to, what, close to 60,000 employees. But the core lesson remains. Finding a global name, built on a foundation of solving a major gap, the lack of Chinese data, and thinking far beyond your current capability.
And that ties into his truly audacious long-term vision. He wants people to totally forget about e-commerce 15 years from now.
He wants it to be viewed like electricity.
Ubiquitous, assumed, and just essential infrastructure.
Right. We don't talk about high-tech electricity, we just assume it's there. That is the ultimate measure of success for him, when his service becomes so integral to society that his novelty completely vanishes.
But this vision demanded more than just a website. It demanded fundamental social and financial transformation, which leads us directly to the most daring move in Alibaba's history.
The creation of Alipay, a system built on his willingness to risk his own freedom.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And this is where we move from mere entrepreneurship to really foundational nation building.
It's true. Ma realized he couldn't build an e-commerce giant in China without first establishing the single most crucial element that was missing from the equation.
And that was trust.
Trust. Let's elaborate on this concept of trust within the Chinese market at the time. Traditional Chinese business relied heavily on guangxi.
Guangxi, which essentially means relationships or social networks, right?
Exactly. It's all built on face-to-face trust, mutual obligations, long-term connections. If you wanted to do a major business deal, you relied on established personal relationships and reputations.
But online transactions were completely anonymous. I don't know you, so why would I send you money? That fundamental lack of trust meant the system was just frozen.
For the first 3 years of Alibaba, the platform is essentially just an information exchange. People could list goods, but actual transactions often failed or just didn't happen.
Because there was no payment system that buyers and sellers could trust at the same time.
And the banks, which were the natural solution, they flat out refused to cooperate. They were operating in a legacy physical system, and they told Ma, point blank, this thing would never work.
So he faced complete paralysis. The technology was there, the buyers and sellers were there, but the financial bridge was completely missing.
This brings us to the pivotal leadership moment. Ma was attending Davos, the World Economic Forum, and he heard a powerful discussion that really resonated with him.
The idea that leadership isn't about power or position.
But that leadership is about responsibility.
He didn't hesitate.
No, he called his colleagues back in China immediately and told them to launch Alipay. And we have to be clear, this was not a minor decision. This was an extreme, legally perilous leap of faith.
We really need to go into depth on the legal risk here. Launching an escrow and payment service in China in 2004 without a financial license was directly against existing laws.
Well, absolutely. He was essentially creating an unauthorized private bank. The regulatory environment in China, particularly around finance, was and remains highly centralized.
So by stepping into the void left by the banks, he was directly challenging the financial status quo and the institutions governed by the state.
He lacked the license, and the government had made it very clear that private escrow services were not permitted. The personal risk was enormous.
The commitment he demanded and offered was extreme. He told his team, knowing the consequences. If one body has to go to the prison, Jack Ma go to the prison.
He took absolute personal responsibility for what he knew was an illegal yet economically essential infrastructure project.
This is such a crucial lesson in high-stakes entrepreneurship. He prioritized the fundamental market need, the need for trust in anonymous transactions over adherence to conventional wisdom or even current legal codes.
This one move cemented the viability of e-commerce in China. But let's pause here. If someone today, pursuing financial freedom, launches a product that directly violates banking regulations, that's incredibly risky.
Yeah, how do we distinguish between necessary innovation and just reckless disregard for the law?
That's the critical question. And I think the distinction is that Ma wasn't seeking personal gain at the expense of others. He was filling a vacuum that traditional institutions refused to fill. He was enabling millions of small businesses to transact.
He was providing a net societal good.
And he was willing to personally bear the potential legal cost for that good. Success at this level often requires a calculation of societal benefit versus personal risk.
And what was the immediate reaction from the experts?
Many people, especially those in traditional finance, told him Alipay was the stupidest idea he had ever had. They saw only the legal and financial liability, not the profound potential for market enablement.
And his classic reply.
I don't need the stupid or clever as long as people use it. The validation came not from financial commentators or regulators, but from the users who desperately needed the system.
And the outcome speaks for itself. Alipay now has, 800 million users.
800 million. And 60 million transactions happen daily based entirely on this trust system he risked prison for. That is the definition of creating lasting generational financial value.
The lesson for our listener is so clear. Massive success doesn't come from quick, easy wins.
It comes from having the vision and the fortitude to solve fundamental, painful problems for millions of people, even if everyone thinks your solution is stupid or too risky. You have to prioritize the user need over every other consideration.
So, moving now from those specific business decisions to the core philosophy that enabled his entire financial rise, it wasn't just about timing or technology.
No, it was about attitude.
Yeah.
And where you look for problems.
May frequently champions the spirit of the American movie Forrest Gump.
Which is fascinating, because Gump is the antithesis of the typical Silicon Valley genius, right? The lesson he extracts is incredibly simple. Never give up, believe what you're doing, love it, be simple.
I understand the appeal of simplicity, but surely running a complex multi-billion-dollar tech ecosystem demands incredibly complex maneuvering. Is he, maybe downplaying the complexity?
I think the simplicity he champions is reserved for the mission and the user focus. The implementation is incredibly complex, yes, but the goal-making, it easy to do business anywhere, is simple.
So it's about a simple North Star.
Exactly. Gump's consistency and forward motion, despite lacking intellectual complexity, is what Ma admires. It's a philosophy that champions simple, consistent forward motion over complex, brilliant, but ultimately inconsistent maneuvering.
And that consistency allows him to apply his rule for identifying genuine opportunities, he says. The opportunity always lies in the place where people complain.
If we break this down, most people hear complaints and just feel frustrated. Ma hears them and sees a ready-made business plan that needs solving.
So let's look at the complaints Alibaba solved. Number 1, I can't find goods outside my local city.
Solution. Taobao, his consumer-to-consumer platform.
Complaint number 2, I don't trust sending money to a stranger online.
Solution. Alipay, the trust mechanism we just discussed.
And complaint number 3, my logistics are too slow or non-existent.
Solution. Cainiao, the integrated logistics network. He translates mass dissatisfaction into solvable problems with massive market potential.
So for you listening today, this means tuning out the noise and identifying the foundational, frustrating complaints that affect millions daily, like, modern data privacy complaints or the complexity of accessing decentralized finance, for example.
He also understood early on that he couldn't fight the existing giants head on. When he was young, he thought giants like Bill Gates and Larry Ellison had already taken all the opportunities.
So his counter-strategy was to aim lower in scale but higher in impact.
Right. He concluded, I should aim to support and help the people around me do tiny things. This focus on enabling the small merchant, the individual entrepreneur, became Alibaba's entire mission.
And that became his competitive edge against giants like eBay, which operated a very different top-down model.
And that focus on enabling others is deeply linked to his philosophy on failure. Those who fail and immediately blame others, that person, he says, has no chance. The emotional cost of resentment just stops them from moving forward.
But those who fail and constantly check themselves saying, it is my fault, I should change here or change there, those are the people who always have opportunities.
He says he learned the most valuable lessons from the failures of others and from his own torrent of mistakes. This is the constant self-reflection necessary for sustained financial growth.
It prevents that emotional burnout that makes most people quit after rejection number 1 or 2.
He even noted once that he never cries over mistakes because he knows crying doesn't help. He just focuses on ensuring his competitors cry. It's a ruthless focus on learning and outcomes.
Let's discuss speed, which is counterintuitive for a tech giant. In the internet age, everything is supposed to be immediate, but Ma champions a decade-long strategy.
This is one of his most profound pieces of advice. And it drastically separates him from the typical short-term startup mentality. He states, "Everything we do, we prepare for 10 years.
And critically,
If we want to be successful, we have to win 10 years later."
a decade-long horizon.
Yeah.
This completely changes how you structure a business. It means you don't worry about the current quarter's earnings report or the latest market fad.
It means you focus capital allocation entirely on building resilient, long-term infrastructure. Think about the implications for hiring
You hire people who are comfortable with delayed gratification.
and deep, tedious groundwork, not just the quick-hit artists. It means you build a platform like Kineal Logistics, knowing it will lose money for years, but will become essential infrastructure a decade down the line.
That's the path to nonlinear growth and massive financial freedom, focusing on something others deem too slow or too complex right now.
And achieving that 10-year success demands brutal commitment. He has no illusions that the road is easy or free.
Which reinforces the need for relentless hard work.
His famous quote encapsulates the sheer endurance required. "Today is very tough. Tomorrow is more tougher. The day of tomorrow is beautiful, but most people die tomorrow evening."
You have to push through that middle period, the time when the initial enthusiasm is gone and the obstacles are the toughest, to reach the beautiful outcome. Most people quit right before the dawn.
And he lives this philosophy physically. He noted traveling 867 hours a year in a plane, just constantly working. He is adamant. Nothing is easy. Nothing is free.
And he adds a fascinating layer to this work ethic regarding luck.
Yeah, he believes luck is something you have to actively give away to others. By helping them succeed, the universe or the market returns luck to you later. It's a very karmic view of business.
That's a great transition into discussing how he manages resources, not just time and effort, but money, government relationships, and, crucially, smart people.
Ma is extremely deliberate about how he positions his own intelligence.
Yeah.
He insists he is not a smart person, but he works with many smart people.
So what's the distinction he's making?
The critical distinction he draws is that smart people often want quick success. And that's why they sometimes fail, because they lack the patience for the 10-year grind.
The genius, then, is surrounding himself with high IQ individuals, but ensuring the overall strategy is governed by long-term patience and emotional intelligence, which he provides.
Exactly. And this attitude influences his advice on filtering business ideas. When everybody says an idea is great, he usually throws it into the rubbish.
That's so counterintuitive. If everyone agrees, the idea must be good, right?
His logic is that if everyone agrees, the competition is already steep and the margins are already thin. The opportunity is gone. He is interested in the tough, unconventional questions that everyone avoids.
He looks for ideas that people disagree on, or those that sound stupid on the surface but solve a fundamental, massive problem.
Looks like Alipay.
Exactly. Now let's move to a segment that requires careful analysis, given the complexity of global entrepreneurship. His guidance on the complicated dance between private business and the state.
His advice is very succinct. In love with the government, but don't marry them. He stressed that any company relying on government money is rubbish.
The core philosophy must be making money from customers and the market by helping those customers succeed.
This means showing the government how much value you add, jobs, tax revenue, economic stability, but never, ever becoming financially or strategically dependent on them.
This philosophy, however, requires some critical context. While Ma established this principle early on, building his empire independently, the application of this philosophy at his massive scale is, well, it's fraught with danger.
It is. A true deep dive has to acknowledge that challenging the government's financial ecosystem, as he did, eventually led to severe regulatory fallout, specifically after his critical 2020 speech in Shanghai.
Right. At his level, challenging the status quo, even in the name of innovation, can trigger immense regulatory pressure. His philosophy of love, don't marry is essential for startup independence.
But once you reach billion-user scale, the relationship changes, and the state demands influence. It highlights that financial freedom for the individual is achievable, but for the titan, the boundaries are constantly shifting.
So the takeaway for our listener isn't to fear the government, but to understand that true, resilient financial value must be generated independently from customers, not from political favor.
Precisely.
Moving to the philosophy of wealth itself, he was actively unhappy being called the richest man in China.
Yeah, he hated it. He asked his wife if she wanted him to be rich or respected. She chose respected. And that internal metric drove his decisions and his philanthropy far more than net worth ever could.
And this leads to his powerful categorization of money, which reframes the pursuit of financial freedom entirely. He says $1 million, that's your money.
When you have $20 million, you still have problems.
When you have $1 billion, that's not your money.
This is a profound statement. A million is disposable wealth. 20 million still means liability and personal management headaches. But once you cross into the billions, that capital transcends personal ownership.
It becomes a responsibility.
It represents society's trust, the belief that you can manage those resources better for future investment and societal problem solving than the government or others could.
It transforms the pursuit of massive wealth from a selfish goal into a civic obligation. The freedom, then, is the freedom to choose how you serve society with that capital.
And that ties directly into his focus on the future, artificial intelligence. For young people seeking financial security, the threat of job displacement is very real.
He urges people to view this transition historically. Just as the steam engine and electricity destroyed manual jobs but created exponentially more new jobs, AI will ultimately create more jobs overall.
But they will be fundamentally different kinds of jobs.
However, he acknowledges the immense pain point. The next 20 to 30 years will be a tough transition period. A lot of what he calls stupid jobs, those requiring rote memory or repetitive physical labor, will be eliminated.
So what is the human competitive advantage against a machine that is stronger, faster, and possesses a better memory?
His answer is clarity itself. Machines can never be as wise as human beings.
Because humans possess belief, heart, and religion. These elements imbue us with wisdom, which is distinct from raw intelligence or calculation power.
Therefore, the preparation strategy for the future, for maintaining relevance and financial security, must be entirely focused on leveraging that unique human wisdom.
Exactly. He advises young people to stop trying to out-memory or out-calculate computers. That is a losing game you will never ever win. Instead, everything you learn must focus on making you more creative,
More innovative.
and more constructive.
So if you are in a career today and your job requires rote calculation or simple information recall, you need to pivot your learning toward those three key pillars: creativity, innovation, and constructiveness to secure your financial future.
That's the actionable takeaway. Assess your curriculum or your career path through those three lenses. If the learning doesn't enhance those unique human traits, you are training yourself to be redundant.
That is extremely practical advice for navigating the next few decades toward financial security. It connects back to his failure philosophy. Don't worry about things you can't control, like the pace of AI.
But worry intensely about the things you can control: your own learning, your self-improvement, and where you direct your unique human wisdom.
To wrap up this playbook, Jack Ma provides an incredibly specific career roadmap based on age, which is highly practical for anyone mapping out their path to success and financial freedom.
This age-specific roadmap is perhaps his most tactical piece of advice. It shows that different decades of life demand a different strategic focus based on your energy, experience, and resources.
Okay, let's break it down. Starting with the formative years, ages 20 to 30. The mission is simple: find a good boss.
He argues this is more important than finding a good company. The emphasis here is on structured learning, mentorship, and discipline.
He says the college diploma is just a certificate. The real test starts when you leave school.
Right. You need a human mentor in the real world who can provide practical, applicable training, discipline, and help you understand the flow of business. You are acquiring skills and mental toughness, not just a paycheck.
Then, ages 30 to 40 are the decade of entrepreneurial testing.
If you truly want to try entrepreneurship, this is the time to do it. You've had 10 years of training under a good boss. You've seen the mechanics of business.
You have the energy, but your financial and family responsibilities aren't yet so binding that failure means complete catastrophe.
This is your window to take calculated risks.
Ages 40 to 50 is the time to leverage. Do things that you are good at, relying heavily on your 20 years of accumulated learning, experience, and network.
This is the decade to capitalize on your established strengths. Avoid chasing new, unproven markets outside your domain of expertise. You must leverage the assets you built in the first 2 decades to maximize your financial return.
Ages 50 to 60 is where the focus shifts outward and upward.
Spend time supporting young people. Become the good boss that you sought out in your 20s.
This is the intentional choice to dedicate financial and intellectual capital to the next generation. It reinforces his philosophy of giving away luck and fulfilling that social obligation that comes with wealth.
And finally, ages 60 and over. Spend time with your grandchildren. a straightforward, simple retirement goal that brings the focus back to personal life.
The entire roadmap shows a life structured around learning, applying, leveraging, and eventually giving back.
It reinforces the idea that confidence doesn't come from external market stability. It comes from happy customers and a confident, well-trained, and disciplined team.
And if you choose to pursue financial freedom through self-employment, a critical path for so many of our listeners, he demands a specific mindset.
You must be working for society because you only succeed when you help others succeed.
That is the ultimate takeaway from his story. Whether it was giving away his time for free English practice, risking prison for the creation of Alipay, or structuring his entire organization to enable the success of small merchants, Ma's vast wealth is rooted in solving problems for the masses.
And focusing on the long-term benefit of others.
So the Jack Ma playbook is clear. Embrace rejection until it becomes psychologically normal. Solve massive systemic problems that others complain about but ignore. Be prepared to work harder and longer than everyone else. We're talking a consistent 10-year outlook, minimum.
And redefine success not by the dollars in your account, but by the respect you earn and the number of people you successfully enable.
So let's leave you with this final provocative thought to carry forward into your own endeavors.
Jack Ma chose to take a huge legal risk with Alipay because he saw it as an essential, foundational step for global trade, even though everyone called the idea stupid.
So the question for you is this: what massive foundational problem that others complain about are you currently avoiding solving because the risk seems too high or because everyone else calls the idea stupid?
That is where your true, nonlinear opportunity for financial freedom lies.
Thank you so much for engaging in this deep dive into the playbook of Jack Ma. Which of Jack Ma's rules, rejecting conventional wisdom, embracing the 10-year view, or seeking opportunities and complaints, will you apply to your pursuit of financial success this week? Thank you for listening, and let's meet again with new Deep Dive.